said, the moment you get rid of them, they are contributing to, woo! The tampon just flew away. What is up, everyone? It's Carmen here from drcarmenjames.com, and this is the second in a series on sustainable menstruation products. If you haven't already, please go ahead and watch my previous video all about reusable menstrual pads. And today we are going to be talking about tampons versus the menstrual cup. So if you are completely new to this, we are going to be talking about the differences between these two internal menstruation products, and hopefully I'll be able to convince you that the more healthy and sustainable option is to go for the menstrual cups. If you want to learn more about menstrual cups and the differences between them and tampons, if you're completely new to this, you have no idea what a menstrual cup even looks like, then please stay tuned. Guys, and these are tampons. Now they come in two different versions, one with an applicator. So tampons with an applicator look like this. Usually the applicator is either made of plastic or cardboard, and the purpose of the applicator is to help you be able to insert the tampon without any difficulty. So I'm going to show you in a moment how a tampon is usually inserted, and then if you have never maybe used one of these or seen one of these, then maybe you're familiar with these. And these tampons are what are called digital tampons. So in other words, you actually just use your finger to get them in. So that's the difference between these two guys. Now, what are tampons made of? This may or may not be a question that you've ever asked yourself, but it is interesting to think about what they're made of, especially because they are going to go inside of you. So tampons are usually either made of cotton. If you buy organic tampons, which is really a good idea if you are going to be using tampons, then they will be made of 100% cotton. But by and large, tampons are usually made up of a mixture of a few things, including something called rayon. Now, rayon is a material that is actually produced, it's actually engineered. It is a natural occurring fiber, but it has to be processed in order for it to actually be able to absorb things. And really the point of tampons is to absorb menstrual blood. So as I mentioned before, these types of tampons usually have a plastic coating on the outside. So if you kind of think about menstrual waste and the fact that menstruators use so many menstrual products in a lifetime, in the previous video I said that it's approximately 12,000 pads or tampons that a menstruator can go through in their lifetime. That's a huge amount. Now, I don't know if you've ever thought about how many menstrual products you use every time you have your period, but it's worth doing a calculation to try and find out. But usually these guys are coated with a plastic coating, and as we know, the amount of plastic that's accumulating in our world is striking. And so aside from the actual tampon themselves being disposed of and then hopefully being able to biodegrade, you actually also need to consider the fact that the packaging is also contributing to your overall menstrual waste every month. So these tampons are usually made of rayon and sometimes even in combination with cotton, and the point really is for them to absorb menstrual blood. But if you think about it, the fact that they are so white, there has to be a way that they've got these tampons to look this white, and oftentimes tampons are bleached in order to make them so white. Another thing is that during the processing of rayon and processing of tampons in general, there's a lot of energy that gets used, water and other resources, and oftentimes these tampons can contain other petrochemicals as well. In addition to that, if you look at the string, which is usually the part that hangs out of you so that you can pull the tampon out when it's time to remove it, you'll find that a lot of them actually are dyed. And so if you think about just the amount of chemicals and toxins that you would be exposing yourself to whenever you use these, and if you consider that you're using them every month, several times a month, it can really add up. The other thing is that because these tampons are made of like microfibers, if you've ever pulled one of these out when it was dry, you know exactly how it feels. It's not a pleasant experience at all. But some of these microfibers can actually stick to the inside walls of the vagina, and they can then go on to cause sometimes infections or even irritation. So now going on to the tampons with the applicator. I'm going to show you in a moment how these are inserted and where they actually sit in the vaginal canal when they are put in place. But in addition to the packaging, the actual box that these come in, and the paper that they are covered in usually when you get them out of the box, you have to consider that all this cardboard and sometimes plastic is also contributing to menstrual waste. And the reason why we're even thinking about menstrual waste and trying to obtain or trying to achieve a more sustainable period is because of the amount of menstrual waste that is piling up month on month by everybody who experiences a menstrual period. And so if you think about the fact that these products and the packaging is contributing to filling up our landfills, it's really something to kind of think about with regards to how you can perhaps start to make a more eco-friendly choice when it comes to what you can use during your menstruation. So before I even go any further, whether we are talking about tampons or whether we're talking about menstrual cups, just remember that these have nothing to do with virginity, okay? So when you are inserting menstrual products into the vaginal canal, this has nothing to do with virginity. And it shouldn't be confused. Sometimes, you know, people feel like if you're inserting something inside of you, then your virginity is quote unquote broken. The issue of virginity does not lie in any menstrual products, including tampons or menstrual cups. Another thing about tampons is that they are non-selective. So they are going to absorb everything inside the vaginal canal, including your normal vaginal secretions. And oftentimes this can lead to vaginal dryness, and that can lead to irritation and sometimes even infections. Sometimes these tampons may even have a scent to them, and that adds to the amount of chemical burden that you may be placing your body under every time you use these tampons internally. So depending on where you are in your period, maybe in the beginning you'll have a few heavy days, and then towards the end the period will get lighter and lighter, and then you'll be able to select different tampons for the amount of flow that you are experiencing. So they come in various sizes, from light all the way to the super mega huge tampons that are super absorbent and that are really used for those menstruators who have a very heavy flow. How long you wear your tampons will really depend on your flow. So on days where you're having very heavy flow, you may need to change your tampons more frequently, and on days where perhaps your flow is a bit lighter, you may require less tampon changes. But tampons should not be worn for longer than 8 hours at a time, and that's an absolute maximum. So the other thing about tampons is that they're single use. Obviously, once you've used them, you have to throw them away. There are reusable tampons that exist, but these guys are disposable. And so as we said, the moment you get rid of them, they are contributing to, woo! The tampon just flew away. Throw these tampons away, they basically are going to be contributing to your menstrual waste. And so now we're going to look at the differences between the tampons that we were discussing and the menstrual cup. This is a menstrual cup. And so this is the menstrual cup by Moon Cup. And you know, the first time you look at this thing, it can be very confusing as to how does this get in? What is it gonna do there? How long does it keep it in there? There's just so many questions. And if you were like me when I first looked at this thing, I was like, oh my goodness, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. But anyway, I decided to give it a try. So menstrual cups are designed to catch your period blood instead of absorbing it. So the way it works is the menstrual cup is inserted into the vagina, and it sits there and it catches the menstrual blood, and then you remove it, empty it, clean it, and then reinsert it to continue catching more menstrual blood. A big difference between menstrual cups and tampons is that, like I said, tampons can only be worn for up to 8 hours. Menstrual cups can be worn for up to 12 hours, which means that in a day, sometimes you would only need to change this cup twice, but that also depends on your menstrual flow. Most menstrual cups are made of medical grade silicone, and they are inert, so they don't add anything to you and they don't take anything away. They simply sit there, catch your menstrual blood, you remove it, empty it, wash it out, and then reinsert it. Unlike tampons, which you kind of just insert and call it a day, menstrual cups take a bit of work to get used to. And every video that you watch about menstrual cups and how to insert them will tell you that there is a very steep learning curve the first time you use these menstrual cups, and sometimes even the second time and the third time you use it as well. It can take a long time to be able to get used to using these, and I'm going to show you in a moment how they are inserted and just maybe give you some tips and tricks that you can use if you are a first-time menstrual cup user. The interesting thing about these cups is that they last for a very long time, up to 10 years. And you really only need one. So the nice thing about this is that once you buy one, you don't really have to think about your menstrual waste for the next 10 years. Now, I will say that in some instances, you may experience leaking from the cup, especially when you are first getting used to it. And so in that case, you may need backup. So I use the reusable pads as backup. You may require something else like disposable organic pads, or maybe even period underwear. But really, the majority of your menstrual blood will be caught by the menstrual cup. So if you invest in one of these, you can really take your mind off worrying about your menstrual products for at least the next 10 years. There are various different shapes, different colors, different sizes of menstrual cup, and really it depends on what your unique needs are. So the interesting thing about these is that they also have a bit of a stem, and the stem really is there to help you to remove the menstrual cup. So if you're wondering how does this thing get in, another thing you need to be wondering is how does it get out? And so I'm going to show you a few things, or tell you a little bit about how you insert and remove the menstrual cup. Depending on the cup size that you get, it's going to be able to hold varying amounts of menstrual blood. I think that the largest cup catches about 47 mils of blood, if I'm not mistaken. It's somewhere around there. But how frequently you need to change the cup will really depend on how much menstrual flow you get. If you can imagine, this cup is sitting in there, it's going to fill up with menstrual blood, and it's going to reach a tipping point where the cup may begin to overflow if your period is very heavy and if the cup volume has been exceeded. These menstrual cups, because they're made of medical grade silicone, are not toxic. I do know that there are multiple different colors of menstrual cups, and the thing that concerns me about them, a lot of them do say that they have natural colorants in them, but I just find that if we are trying to be more sustainable and less toxic, that we should probably be trying to avoid anything that doesn't really need to be there. And to me, while the colorful cups look fun and they look cute, I don't think that it's necessary for us to have any dyes or artificial anything inside if it's avoidable. So if it's not necessary, my feeling is that we should be trying to avoid any unnecessary added things if possible. But if you do choose to get a menstrual cup and you are really drawn to a pretty looking cup, then by all means go ahead. My opinion is that we should be trying to avoid any colorants and that kind of thing and dyes, but I know that there are multiple different cups out there in very exciting colors and shapes, and it can be really exciting to look at them and to want to try them out. So it's entirely up to you.
So in this model, you can see the vaginal canal over here. That is the uterus. Then you've got the ovary and the fallopian tubes on this side. At the back, you've got the rectum, and in the front, you've got the bladder. So when you are inserting a tampon, you would insert it into the vaginal canal and then push the plunger of the tampon So the tampon would be sitting like that in the vaginal canal. In order to insert the menstrual cup, however, you need to fold it in order to get it inside the vagina. Now, there's different ways of folding menstrual cups. This cup is called the C fold because it actually makes like a C. Some people call it a U fold. And then another way to fold a cup is to do what's called a punch down fold, where you punch one side of the cup down and then you hold it like that to insert it. Right? So either way you decide to insert the cup, you would fold the cup first, and then you could, if you like, add some water onto the outside just to make it easier to insert. And then you would insert it into the vaginal canal like that. And then the cup would eventually pop open like that. And when it pops open, it creates a seal. Right? So it's almost like a vacuum seal, so that when you pull on the cup, it actually stays in place. So the cup, when it's in place, is actually sitting around the mouth of the womb, also known as the cervix. And when it's sitting like that, it's going to collect the menstrual blood that's coming out of the uterus, and that's going to collect inside that menstrual cup. And then once the cup is full, or once it's time for you to remove it, let's say it's after 12 hours, then you would need to remove the menstrual cup. Now, that is the tricky part if you haven't quite thought about how to get the cup out. So remember, as we said, because the cup springs open and it actually makes sometimes it makes a sound that people can actually hear. But it forms a suction or a vacuum around the vaginal walls. And the purpose of that really is so that the cup does not fall out. So pulling the cup out is actually not going to work. What you would need to do to remove the cup is to pull the stem down so that you can get a good grip on the base of the cup. And then you would press the base of the cup to release the suction, and then you would pull the menstrual cup out. Once it's out, you would then go ahead and tip out the menstrual blood. Then you would wash the menstrual cup and reinsert it. So it can sound a little bit intimidating, and it definitely does require some practice. You may need to give it a few tries before you get it right. But once you get it right, a menstrual cup can actually be life-changing.